joining us today. I had a little bit of technical difficulty there for a second, but thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to be talking about knee pain. So I know a lot of people out there have been struggling with knee pain, knee discomfort of some type. These are this is much more common in people that especially live very, very active lives, former athletes, half my flag football team. And so a lot of people have been dealing with a lot of knee pain, and we've tried things like whether it's wraps, whether it's foam rollers, whether it's stretching, whether it's physical therapy, shots, ibuprofen, all sorts of different medications. So what we want to be able to help understand is a little bit of understanding of why we get knee pain. All right, so I want to go a little bit into some physiology, a little bit into how your body's posture affects into how your knee joints work. So that way you can be able to have a better understanding of how your body works. So that way you have a better understanding of what's going to work and what maybe is not going to work. So the first thing I want to go and help understand is that your knee joint, right, is one of the joints that I would term as what's called a slave joint. What I mean by that is that the function of your knees, and this also includes things like your ankles, your hips, your lower back, your upper back, is going to be affected by things that are going on farther up the kinetic chain or the rest of the body and how we move. So when you think about, hey, I want to be able to go and fix this knee pain that I've been getting, it's like, that's great. And a lot of times when you go and you're thinking of what do I do for this knee pain, I go out and I'm using the foam roller on my IT band on the outside of my leg, or maybe stretching my quads, or doing some other different forms of stretches and exercises that are focused more closer to the knees. We're probably not going to get to the root cause of most people's knee pain. And the root cause of being something going on farther up the chain. So a lot of times, sometimes in the head, sometimes in the neck, but also a lot of times it has to do with how we move on a daily basis. So think about the basic movement that we end up getting a lot of knee pain doing, which is running, jogging, walking, running, sprint, so on and so forth. That same basic movement. So we can be able to go and help. I'm going to try to help understand a little bit of this movement, and then understand some other areas that we can be able to go and work. And then I'll show you a couple of examples of things that you can do for yourself that can be able to go and help this. So I'm going to go and show you a little bit of an example of when we walk and some of the different muscles that we use. So as I step back here, hopefully you guys can see me pretty well. As I step forward with one foot, so I step forward with my left foot, basic gait motion, my right arm goes forward. I'm going to accentuate this a little bit so you can see it, but my right arm goes forward as my left foot goes forward. All right, so this creates the basic locomotion of the spine, the twisting and turning that allows for the next step to be then thrown forward. So our spine twists, and we sort of get a pre-stretch that allows us to be able to smoothly go and take that next step forward and make it to where it's more effortless. However, a lot of times, especially with sports, we tend to be able to go and it's not just sports, but things like repetitive activities. We tend to always be one-handed. For example, we'll tend to always be stronger on one side or weaker on another. So especially if you're right-handed, we'll tend to be able to go and be stronger in one set of muscles, especially in our lats and in our obliques, being able to go and force and twist to one side as I go and throw a ball, or perhaps in our lower body when I'm trying to go and, let's say I kick a soccer ball, I'm standing on my left foot and I kick with my right. My left foot's going to be a little stronger than my right is because I'm always balancing on it. So what happens is that we get these imbalances. So we end up going and getting altered posture going all the way up the chain of the body. So where you might need to be able to work is more on one side versus another. So if, for example, I have tightness in my obliques on one side, it's going to end up, I'm going to go and end up turning my posture. All right, so my shoulders will be turned, maybe my one shoulder will be lower. I'm going to end up putting more weight on one side. Well, also one of the things that will happen is that I'll end up being slightly turned with my hips. So I'll go and I'll look at someone's posture on a plumb line. They'll go and their bodies will be slightly rotated. One knee will be more extended, one knee will be more bent, and we end up with altered biomechanics of the knee, and we always end up getting one-sided knee pain somewhere, right? So maybe on the left side or the right side, depending on sort of what the activities that that person is doing, but there's always going to be some sort of pain somewhere. It's guaranteed. There's no way to be able to go and avoid it. We want to be able to make sure that when we're doing exercise that and other different forms of manual therapy and stretching, that we want to be able to address these imbalances. So the basic motion of walking and jogging, it creates this rotational motion, right? And there are lines of tension that we get during these rotational motions of walking. And the first thing I'm going to be able to go and show is what muscle group areas go and tend to get more tight that can then go and cause some knee pain. So one of the things I'm going to show you, and one of the most interesting pieces of equipment that I have in my office is this. And this is a massage cane, so I'm going to bring it a little closer to the camera so you can see it. This is a fairly inexpensive piece of equipment. I would go and say that you can be able to see this like a Bed Bath & Beyond. This is where I got this one. It was like at a Bed Bath & Beyond for like 15, 20 bucks. But you can use this fairly easily. So the couple of areas I'm going to go and show how to be able to work with this is with this cane. So if I'm, for example, over rotating one side, the two areas that we're going to work one area on the leg, on the outside from the upper knee up to the hip, and the ribs and obliques, which will go and cause this over rotation. So I'm going to go and sit down in the chair here. I'm going to show a couple of examples with this. So as I'm sitting here, I've got, I'm going to back up a little bit so you can see it in the camera a little bit better. So as I've got this, I'm going to sit in the chair here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this part of the cane here, this knob part of the cane as this comes out. I'm going to put this on the outer portion of our leg, starting just above the knee. I'm going to gently go up towards the hip in this area. So imagine I'm drawing a line from the outer portion of my knee up to the front of my hip here. So it's just a nice straight line. As I'm going up here, I'm doing a gentle manual therapy with this cane. So this soreness should be at about a 3 on a pain scale of 1 to 10, 1 being almost nothing and 10 being the worst pain you've ever felt. You want to be about a 3, no higher than that. So I'm going to do this about 8 times, and then I'm going to go to my left side. All right, 6, 7, and 8. Then I'll flip over to my left. So I'm going to keep my leg straight here. Now, these are two examples. I'm going to show 2 examples of manual therapies. Now, as I'm doing these, you have to remember that everybody's knee pain and cause is different. I'm talking about one specific cause of possible knee pain today that most people wouldn't think of when they think of normal types of therapies for the knees. There's a myriad of different causes for any specific type of joint pain. I just want to be able to get you thinking that if you feel like you're stuck with the same amount of knee pain that you've always had, how do we be able to go and come up with some different solutions that that may go and get us sort of over this this chronic knee pain that we may be having? So then you can go back again. I'm going to do the right side a second time. So usually when you have these type of tightnesses, there's always one side that ends up being a little bit tighter than the other. So I'm going to do the second time on one side here. Now, some people, maybe the left side we do twice, some people maybe the right, but there's usually one side that ends up being a little bit tighter. So I would do that about 8 times. The next one we're going to do is we're going to work on the ribs and our obliques. So now I'm going to use the curved portion of the cane here and the end of the curve on one side. I'm going to place that on the start of my ribs here. with one hand holding the apex of this curve of the cane, and I'm going to gently push down and around. And this is working my obliques and rib muscles that go and are partially responsible for rotation. Push gently going down and across. We're going to do about 8 times here. 6, 2 more, 7, 8. So remember, no higher than a 3 on a pain scale of 10. It shouldn't be something that you feel like, oh man, I'm pushing so hard that it really is up at that 6, 7, 8 level soreness. If you're doing that, it's too much. And remember, one of the things as well when we do manual therapy or foam rolling, there are certain very important precautions that if a person's on quite a bit of blood thinners, or perhaps you've been diagnosed with higher stroke risk, you want to be very careful with doing manual therapy. Make sure that you talk to your doctor or physician, making sure that you don't have any of those types of risk for these types of diseases. Because again, sometimes if you're not careful in very specific situations, there can be health risks involved. But just make sure that when you go and you start any exercise program, make sure you speak to your doctor. That's always a good indication to make sure that you're not putting yourself at any increased risk of things like clots or strokes, especially which you can go and be aggravated by with some forms of manual therapy. But I wanted to make sure I got that out there well before we did this. So now we're going to go down and do the right side a second time, starting from the tip of that rib, going down and around the ribs here. So I'm almost reaching the top of that bottom of that shoulder blade on the right and going down and around until I'm reaching the front of the ribs. So what we're trying to be able to do with these two is to be able to go and help with being able to rebalance the body when it comes to how well we're rotating. Now, I just gave 2 examples today. If I were to go and show how many different muscles are involved with rotation, there's muscles that are involved that go from our feet all the way up to our head and our neck. And it could be any one of these that could be not functioning correctly, that could be causing some issues for you when you're walking, when you're jogging, when you're running. So that's what we try to be able to do here at Balance Your Fitness, is to find out which ones are which areas that you need to be able to go and work on. And so that's something that if you do have questions, don't hesitate to message in the comments. These are the things that we do on a daily basis to be able to help those struggling with all sorts of different types of joint pain. And you can apply these concepts that we've learned today and be able to apply it to other different forms of slave joints that we may have issues with, whether those are ankles, our hips, our lower back, upper back, neck. There's a lot of different application and crossover to some of these other forms of joint pain that you may have. So if you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to mention them in the comments. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Have a great day.